and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item number 3, roll call. Thank you, Madam President. Division 7, Gary Van Dam.
Here.
Division 6, Audrey Miller. Here. Division 5, Robert Parris.
Here.
Division 4, Justin Lane.
Here.
Division 3, Frank Donato. Division 2, Keith Dias.
Here.
Division 1, Shelley Forcible.
Here. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Item number 4, adoption of agenda.
This is Keith. I'll make a motion that we adopt the agenda. This is Rob. I will second it.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Parris.
Yes.
Justin Lane.
Yes.
Frank Donato. Keith Dias.
Yes.
Shelley Forcible.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Item number 5, public comments and 3 of the If there's anybody that would like to address the board, this would be the time to put your name so that we know who is speaking. Hearing none, we're moving on to item 6. Item number 7, consent calendar. Do I have a motion for this consent calendar?
This is Keith. I will make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
This is Audrey. I'll second the motion. Madam Secretary, roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Parris.
Yes.
Justin Lane.
Yes.
Frank Donato. Keith Dias.
Yes.
Shelley Forcible.
Yes. Thank you.
And may I ask the members of the public, if you're on the line, to mute yourselves? Everybody mute themselves except for the board members unless you want to speak. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 8. Finance Committee. Mr. Donato is unavailable at this moment. Director Dias, can you please step in?
Item 8A1, consideration and possible action on the purchase of 2 Ford F-550 cab and chassis for the maintenance division. Do we have a presentation by staff?
Yes, we do. Board Member Dias, John Bozian will provide a staff report for the board on the 2 F-150 cab and chassis for the maintenance division, and for a total of $105,382.78.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
If you refer to page 62 of page 106 in your board agenda packet, you'll find the staff report that I'll be speaking about this evening. If you recall, a little background, the board approved the formation of a separate maintenance department, which we plan to develop a little more fully in the 2020-2021 fiscal year. And included in the draft of the new fiscal year budget will be the addition of 2 maintenance employees, 1 journeyman maintenance 2 technician, and 1 well and pump technician that we've talked about before. In order for these employees to perform their duties, they'll need fully equipped service trucks. With that in mind, staff sent out a request for proposals to all the local dealerships, as we typically do. The specifications call for pricing on 2 2.5-ton cab and chassis units, which once we take possession of those, we will have them outfitted with service bodies, welders, compressors, cranes, and other necessary tools. Having sent out those RFPs, we received only one response from a local dealer, and that was from Antelope Valley Ford, in the amount of $105,382.78. We thought it'd be good to get some comparative pricing, so we reached out to Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing, and if you recall, that's the organization that Avek belongs to. They represent a lot of municipalities and public agencies, and you get much better pricing when you go through them on a lot of things. So that's what we went through to get our portable generators, if you recall. We received pricing from them. It was not as good as we had hoped. It was $117,352.96. So then we looked. We wanted to make sure that the pricing was still good. So we did another comparison. And if you recall, in 2012, we purchased pretty much the exact same cab and chassis from AV Ford for our welding truck. And 8 years ago, the price was about $5,000 less than it is today. So not a bad comparison at all. So we figured we did due diligence on that. Now, how are we going to pay for these vehicles? Well, they were included in the current capital improvement budget, and we budgeted $225,000 for the two vehicles, including outfitting them. Final cost after outfitting, we think is going to be about $25,000 to $30,000 more than we had budgeted. So we wanted to find a way to do that this year, and we decided that if we move capital budget item BIR 7-20, which was the FPL turnout upgrade, to the next fiscal year, and that budgeted amount was about $30,000.
You are muted. You can mute or unmute yourself by pressing *6.
These service vehicles. We're currently working with FPL to develop a new service agreement, so we think that moving it to the new fiscal year would be prudent on that item. That being said, delivery of these two vehicles would probably be in late May. And once we have them, there's about a 2-month lead time for the service bodies to be built. And at that time, we'll go out for bids on service bodies. There's 3 or 4 companies in California that do that. But once we actually get the bid and award it for the service bodies, it'll take about 2 months to outfit them. So really, we won't get these completed vehicles until late July, early August, which the timeline is about right. We should have those 2 new employees on staff by, we're hoping, late July, early August. And they'll have, fully outfitted vehicles that they can use to perform their duties. So with that being said, we request that the board approve the GM to award this contract or this purchasing bid to Antelope Valley Ford in the amount of $105,382.78. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You are unmuted.
Thank you for your presentation. Director Dias? Yeah.
I would like to make a motion that we approve Board Order 8A1.
I'll second it.
Roll call. Any questions? Comments from any of
Yeah, Director Van Dam had a question. John, do we have? Are we trading anything in on these 2 new vehicles?
No, we are not trading anything in. These are going to be a straight purchase.
Okay, and on the bodies, the service body, so these 2 vehicles are brand new bodies that we need. We can't use a body off another vehicle that we had.
We only have one current service vehicle, and that's our welding truck. No, we would have to have bodies built for them. We've already kind of done some preliminary pricing. That's how we kind of came up with the budget. But we would, Gary, we construct these vehicles to be one-off for the duties they're going to perform. For instance, the well and pump technician is going to need probably a little larger crane than the maintenance 2 would. So we're going to really look hard at how we can build these things so they'll be the most efficient.
I see. Thank you, John.
Okay, thanks, Gary.
Any other comments? Madam Secretary, roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Parris,
Yes.
Justin Lane,
Yes.
Frank
Yes.
Donato.
Yes.
Thank you, Frank. Keith Dias,
Yes.
Shelley Forcible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Donato, can you please present item 8A2?
This is Keith Dias. I believe our staff has a presentation to make on this item.
That is correct. Tracy Yates, our finance director, will provide a staff report.
Good evening. You'll see a staff report and a term sheet associated with the staff report on page 78 of your board packet.
You are muted.
Some background. The agency issued some variable rate COPs in 2008, and those COPs are secured by a letter of credit issued by Wells Fargo Bank. Every 3 years since the issuance of those COPs, the letter of credit has been renewed. Staff met with some folks from Wells Fargo to consider the options at this point, since the current letter of credit is renewing at the end of July. So we met with Wells Fargo to discuss the options that were available to the agency. The first option shown in the staff report was refunding those variable rate COPs for fixed rate revenue bonds. Wells Fargo provided an analysis of a transaction such as that, and it showed that there would be a net present, a negative net present savings of $1.5 million. So looking at option 2, which is to renew a letter of credit.
Can you stop for a second? We can't
Sure.
see the bottom of the staff report. Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so option 2 looks at renewing the letter of credit, and the renewal would be 34 basis points. The 5-year renewal would be 39. The 39 is what the current letter of credit fee is. So renewing for a 3-year term would actually save the agency $22,500 a year with the lower rate. So staff recommends doing that and renewing that as soon as, accepting the term sheet as soon as possible so that we can secure the 34 basis points. I believe Michael Engelbrecht is on the line from Wells Fargo to answer any questions the directors may have.
I have some. Michael, good evening. This is Frank Donato. I have a couple questions. With the Fed rate down to 0, to a quarter point discount rate, we couldn't refinance these rates to get a lower bond rate?
Hey, Director Donato, it's Michael Engelbrecht. It's good to hear from you again. Happy to join via conference call today. That, as always, that is the question to ask. We met with agency staff on Tuesday, March 10th, and almost a couple of days after walking out of that meeting, the world was turned upside down. While we have very low...
Whoa, wait, time out. Did you say you met with the staff March 10th?
That's correct.
That's not, okay.
That's initially.
Whoa. Yeah, see, that's not what I was told. Okay, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, we met and addressed the question of looking at refunding the variable rate bonds with fixed rate bonds. And at that point in time, the municipal market was very attractive. However, the district's annual average weekly reset to investors was, 1 point something. So it was very, very attractive. And the bonds go out, I think, to 2030 something. And so the principal is out longer. And so there was really no way to save money at that point in time. Since then, you are correct. Fed funds rate has gone down dramatically. U.S. Treasury rates have been reduced dramatically, but that's because it's been a pure flight to quality, as we all have seen. Investors have been fleeing all other markets, including tax-exempt bonds. And in fact, the investors, I guess a week ago, $2.1 billion had left the tax-exempt money market funds, and just into pure cash. And so what we've seen are, any rates other than Treasury rates going up just because of the scarcity of investors. Now, that has changed. The Fed announced a week ago the mutual fund liquidity facility. Investors have been hitting, money market funds have hit that. Variable rates are back to, 1%, in between the 1% and 2% range. But we still don't have a clear, functioning, fixed-rate tax-exempt market yet. It's very spotty. Spreads are very wide. We just don't have the consistency of investors buying municipal bonds yet. But Director Donato, I think what may happen is once things start to stabilize, your guess is as good as mine, or probably better than mine, when that would happen. Given the tax rates that will probably go up to pay for all of the stimulus, I think tax-exempt bonds will come back into favor with investors. So we may have an opportunity to take another look at it down the road. This SBPA, or letter of credit extension, just buys the agency more time and allows those variable rates to remain outstanding.
So, Michael, two-point question here. So if we go ahead and approve the letter of credit, and if there's let's say in the next 60 days, things look very favorable, possibly refinancing we get any credit from that, or how would that work?
Well, the letter of credit is paid quarterly. So the fee is accrued quarterly, and so you're not paying up front, you're not paying even annually, and these bonds are callable, at any point in time. So, I'm sure, if with a refunding, it would take a good, 30, 60 days to get something done. So I'm sure you could negotiate paying just for what you approved and not paying for something that you didn't use.
Okay, that's something I didn't remember, was that we're paying it quarterly, which means that it's in all fairness, we pay for the quarters, and then maybe 1 or 2 quarters, and then maybe we're lucky enough, we didn't think possibly to renegotiate then. Okay.
Any other questions?
I think we should do it. I mean, it's the basis points is lower going forward than it was the last 3 years. So I think we should go forward.
And I believe that was the recommendation, correct? From the committee.
That's correct.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move we approve the recommendation of the 34 basis points for letter of credit with Wells Fargo.
I second that.
Any further discussion? Any questions? Madam Secretary, roll call vote.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Harris,
Yes.
Justin Lane,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Shelley Solzabor.
Yes. Does this conclude your report, Director
Yes.
Dyer?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, item 8B, Planning Committee, Director Dyer.
Yes, thank you. The Planning Committee met on March the 25th, and we are bringing our recommended board order 8B1, consideration and possible action to adopt resolution number R2003, approving the adoption of the 2019 update to the Antelope Valley Integrated Regional Water Management Plan. And I believe our Assistant General Manager Knudsen has a presentation for us.
Yes, thank you, Vice President Dias. Good evening, directors. So included in your board packet on page 86 is a brief staff report, and attached to that staff report is the resolution number R-20-03, which is the adoption of the 2019 update to the Antelope Valley Integrated Regional Water Management Plan, and that's what's being considered this evening. So to start off, I've got a brief presentation to kind of go through what the process that the Antelope Valley Irwin group went through to get to this point. So the first of this plan was developed in 2007, and then as years went on, Department of Water Resources that administers these types of plans has had a couple of updates. There was an update in 2013 performed by the region, and then this most recent update was performed just last year in 2019. That's what we're considering this evening. So it's really a stakeholder-driven process, primarily driven by the Regional Water Management Group, with Avek being one of the 11 member agencies that's part of the Regional Water Management Group. And if you look at your resolution on page 87, the third whereas in the resolution lists the various public agencies in the Antelope Valley that are part of that Regional Water Management Group. There's also a group called the A-Team, which is really a representative from each of the various interests in this planning process. And then the stakeholder group is really the public at large, or any various interested parties. It identifies objectives and planning targets for the Antelope Valley itself. Next slide is... Thank you. So some of the updates of the 2019 plan, the topics included taking into account the Antelope Valley Groundwater Basin adjudication. The prior plan was developed prior to the adjudication being finalized and the stipulated judgment being entered into. So this new update takes into the account the new total safe yield. Oh, that's not a good view.
I think that's a good view. Perfect. Stop eating.
Go ahead. Go ahead now.
Okay. Let me, there we go. Next one. There we go. So it took into the account the native safe yield. Our screen's jumping around here. Also took into account the current water supply demand, as well as the supply available to the region. A big change was really that reduction in the native groundwater pumping rights within the Antelope Valley. And also some of the objectives were to extend the date of the planning horizon out through the year 2040, and taking into account those water supply targets that reflect the supply and demand analysis. And then lastly, it does incorporate updated projects as we all know, this planning process, each of the regional water management group agencies incorporate projects that benefit their particular agencies and the region as a whole. And this latest plan incorporates all of those projects. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here. The next slide shows what the projected supply and demands are out to the year 2040. As you can see the years in 5-year increments along the bottom there, 2015 through 2040. And then the various blocks of the bar graph show the available water supply. This is on an average water supply year.
Yeah, hold on. Can everybody mute themselves?
Yeah, we need to somehow be there's a lot of background noise. Can you just, everybody,
You are muted. Okay, Shelley, you're the only one who's unmuted.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this graph shows the projected supply and demand out through 2040. And one question that was brought up at the committee, and it was a good question, you can see at the top of 2020 through 2024 shows the hatched area, the black and white hatch, and it's titled groundwater reduction. What that's doing is taking into account just to document the reduced groundwater production of the native safe yield in the groundwater basin because of the adjudication. So that's why the portion of the bar is a little less in 2020, because in the year 2020 we're still in the middle of the ramp down period, and then it's consistent from years 2025 through 2040. So any shortfall that is from that reduced native groundwater pumping will be made up by other water sources, such as additional import water supply. This is where previously stored banked water will come into effect to meet future demands, recycled water projects, other local projects that will increase the water supply, or like I said, increase the available imported water supply available. So hopefully that answers the question that was brought up by Vice President Dias at the committee meeting. But we did look into that since the committee meeting. The next slide.
You are unmuted.
It kind of shows the timeline that the region went through for this 2019 update.
You are muted.
Compliance with the guidelines of the program. We got word back from them in early December. And then kind of concurrently with that period, just after that, we started the 30-day public review period where all of the stakeholders and regional water management group agencies had an opportunity to review the draft document. That was out for 30 days. We received positive feedback from all the stakeholders. There was no comments, and that period ended in early January. And then here we are in March, where each of the regional water management group agencies have to go through this similar process of adopting this resolution that's before you this evening. This is, I mentioned earlier about the various projects that were updated as part of the 2019 plan. And you can see that we've got this list of projects for the region. Avek project is at the top. It's the SNP Phase 2 pipeline project. We're requesting $881,000 in grant funds from the Department of Water Resources under this grant program. And everything looks very favorable that we are going to receive these funds. We anticipate the second quarter of this year receiving word back from the Department of Water Resources on our application. And then the other projects that submitted grant applications are listed there: the Antelope Valley Resource Conservation District, Palmdale Recycled Water Authority for distribution pipeline of recycled water, Little Rock Dam sediment removal with the Palmdale Water District, and Rosamond Community Services District wastewater treatment plant rehabilitation upgrades. So each of those projects are requesting $881,000. It was split evenly amongst those 4 projects, and then the Resource Conservation District took a lesser amount just because of the size and total cost of the project. We also requested about $80,000 in grant funds to help administer the grant programs for each of these agencies, or each of these projects. This kind of just talks through the various, the grant process that we went through. It involves a process where the region meets with the Department of Water Resources, state representatives, and that process was led by the Regional Water Management Group, Avek being part of that. Our workshop was held on July 30th of last year, and kind of just talks through the process again. As I mentioned, we expect to receive word back from the department second quarter of 2020 on our grant application for SNP Phase 2. And then this is just showing a graphical of the timeline that we went through for the call of projects in our grant application. So with that, recommendation from the committee and staff is to adopt Resolution R20-03, which approved the 2019 update of the Antelope Valley Irwin Plan. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Everybody has to unmute themselves if they want to speak right now.
Okay. You need the director?
Yeah, I have a question. Matt. So I saw the SNP line. What is that a crossover from what we're doing with the other thing?
Yeah, that's a good question, Director Donato. So this program is a state-led program through the Department of Water Resources, and as you mentioned, we are also pursuing federal funding through the WIN Act under a federal program to help also fund the SNP Phase 2 pipeline project. So this would be in addition to those funds that we're requesting from the feds.
That would be good because by the time we get them, it probably went up $881,000.
So our plan and recommendation is if we're successful under the DWR program, this program, and we get to $881,000, we can use those funds to get started on finalizing the design of the project in anticipation of receiving the federal funding.
So what's the time schedule on this versus the federal?
So this is quicker. This is, we anticipate next month or 2 receiving word back from the department on this $881,000. The federal funding would probably be late spring, early summer.
Okay.
So they're pretty close together, but we anticipate hearing earlier on the DWR program.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Hey, Matt, I had one question, Director Van Dam.
Yes, good evening.
Does the public water supplier still have to buy 70% of their water from Avek, the outside source?
So it's not public water supplies as a whole. That is the Antelope Valley, or the LA County Water Works. In the judgment, it specifies.
Does that have anything to do with what we're talking about here?
It's not directly related to this topic.
Okay. Director Van Dam, can we address this at a different time because it's not a part of this?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other questions in regards to this resolution? Okay. Do I have a motion to accept resolution number R-20-03?
This is Rob. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Again, any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller, hold on, let me unmute you if you're muted, Audrey.
Yes.
Thank you. Justin Lane,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias, Keith? There you go.
Yes. Yes.
And Shelley Percival.
Holly, I think you forgot me, and it's a yes from Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, that motion passes. Director Joyce, does that conclude your report?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 8C. Vice President Joyce.
Yes, this is a report from the Delta Conveyance and Negotiations Committee. And we last met on March the 26th and to discuss what shows on your agenda as item 8C1, consideration and possible action to approve an amendment to the Calandry Farms lease. I understand that Calandry Farms has withdrawn its offer to lease our property, so this item will not be considered.
When did that happen?
I heard about it tonight.
Yeah.
Frank, it happened, I should say, Director Donato, this is Dwayne Chisam, the General Manager, and this information was provided to staff this afternoon, and so it was passed on.
Well, I'm confused. I heard they accepted the offer, and then they changed their mind again?
That's my understanding.
No, that's correct.
No, I don't want your understanding. I want a yes or no answer.
Hey, Frank, this is Rob. From what I understand, Bolt House had withdrawn, and it was too late for
Who's
them.
Bolt House? Whoa. Who's Bolt House?
Frank, it was too late for them to plan.
No. We had an agreement. There's a lot of first fight. What is it? Are we breaking the Brown Act? Have a special meeting outside? Wait a second here. The contract and agreement and discussion was with Calandry Farms. Where is Bolt House in this discussion?
Frank, all I know is it's too late to plan.
Okay.
Water amount. And as you can see here, here's the snow levels. I'm just going to use this one right here. We're about half of where we were on average. So this is this little blue graph right in here. So we're certainly not the lowest, but the snow has been, below average through all the regions. And as we move forward, once again, this is a real good graph to show how October was non-existent. November was not all that great. We had a great December, and everybody thought there would be tons of water available below average. And we're hoping between the next couple of weeks we might be able to get some water in here, which if that turns out to be the case, we might get a little bit of a bump in our water allocation. Interesting to see how these patterns work. Here's that long dry spell, and then you can see the water began to bump up there right in the March period. This is the drought monitor graph. There was a couple of times where I showed you earlier this year that we were all in, it was all white. There's very spots where there was no below normal or moderate drought, but you can see that there is some yellow, which is abnormally dry, and moderate drought, and then some severe drought in this northern corner up here. The best news that we have is that because of the wet year last year, even though we have a really low amount of rainfall this year, the reservoirs are beginning to help us to weather this storm fairly, at least for this year. So you can see St. Louis conditions, we're at 73% of total capacity and 81% of the historical average. And here we're at 65% of total capacity in Lake Coralville and 85% of our historical average. So we're really not doing that poorly. And then if you look at the other reservoirs in here, you can see they're all pretty close to their historical average. So this will do well for storage that's available where everything was filled up last year because of the wet year. And once again, this is Lake Coralville currently. You can see this is the historical average, and you can see usually in this period is when we're peaking, and we're right in this location right in there. Same components. You can see, remember when we talked about a month ago about we hit our peak and we started to go down, but you can see March has brought up a little bit of additional flow into St. Louis Reservoir. Looking at our 7-day average flow for our conventional treatment plant, Fort Hills, we're at 14 million gallons a day, and through our exchange with Palmdale, we're getting 0.1 million gallons a day for 14.2. See how that's working over the last 7 days. Our geopurification, which is our flow from our water banks, you can see we got 1.2 million gallons a day coming out of the East Side Water Bank, and 7 million gallons a day, or 7.5 million gallons a day, which is our minimum that's necessary to keep our system fresh, as it's a treated water system. As far as water banking goes, you can see there is this number over here is 0 for the last 7-day average. 3 acre-feet a day we're putting in the East Side Water Bank, and we're still continuing 6 acre-feet a day over at the Upper Amagosa project to fully test that out. This is a graph that we've shown you in the past. This reflects actual deliveries versus projected deliveries. And you can see that we're 51% in January and 88% in February from our customers. This is the water quality update, and we had this blue line right here is the Vincent tank, and that one's creeping up a little bit. John Bozigian, the operations manager, is working on some potential treatment options and testing some things out with regards to the Vincent tank. And I'll highlight that a little more in the operations report. As we all know, the COVID-19 response, as the agency has responded to the various requests from the state and federal government. So what has happened is we've had our lab hours have been revised, and we're having a rotating staff. We're still required to do all the drinking water testing that is required and to have our sampling done on time. Operations right now are as usual for all of our in-house analysis and lab and contract lab items. We're staying in close communication with eLab. They're keeping track of all the open and closed certified labs so that we stay informed on all the backup options in the event of potential closures. Let's see. The next item, the operation maintenance updates. We're still working on our 2019-2020 asset maintenance projects. And as I mentioned previously, we have an in-house THM testing program that we're doing up the Leona Valley Reservoir. That's currently in progress. We should have some results back to you in the next meeting or two as to how that project's working out. We also had Phillips Lab, the rocket site pump station, is being rehabilitated and should be able to serve the potable water sometime this summer for the Air Force Base request. And we did contact all of our treatment treatment chemical suppliers, and they've all assured us that they'll be able to supply us with chemicals we need in order to maintain our treatment processes that are currently underway. Some additional information with regards to our COVID-19 response. Our operations continue as usual. We have no illness reports. Employees are teleworking and holding remote meetings whenever possible. All the measures have been taken to maximize our operational efficiency. We have some employees that are cross-training. Should we get a run of sickness, we'll have employees that can do several different functions. We're prioritizing all of our critical functions and remote functions also. All of our customers have been notified that operations will continue as normal, and our lab customers have been notified of the revised hours and assured that we're providing the necessary services to keep them in compliance with their drinking water requirements also. And the employees have been provided a critical infrastructure worker clearance letters so that should they get stopped for any particular reason, they can show that they are a critical infrastructure worker. As far as the High Desert Water Bank goes, we had our kickoff meeting with the project team. We reviewed schedules, roles, responsibilities. We reviewed the initial data request that we received, and we scheduled monthly standing meetings on the second Wednesday of the month. So we'll be providing information back to the board on our various updates with the High Desert Water Bank. Not to go over too much more with regards to COVID, you can see that we're complying with all the declarations that have come from both the federal and the state. And we've also filed some documentation with the with FEMA and others so that we might be able to get some funding from California if this thing drags out much further and we have some expenses that may be refundable. So we've gotten all of the initial information to both the federal and state government to be able to apply for those funds should it be necessary in the future. It's interesting, we're going to have a significant budget impact on the state budget. And then also in addition to that, with basically a shutdown kind of the state, there also will be probably a significant reduction of the amount of revenue that's being coming into the state budget. So while we may get through this, the budget implications may last for another year or so as they try to wrestle with both a increase in expenditure and a lack of revenue. The budget process is likely going to be simplified with deferred actions so that they meet the June 15 constitutional deadline. It's the negotiations continue on the Delta Conveyance Project, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Service issued today an incidental take permit for the long-term operations of the State Water Project. And the State Water Contractor is currently reviewing that, but it doesn't look too terribly promising. So on initial review, there'll be more to inform the board about in the upcoming board meetings as that gets fully developed. Currently, we have a Water Master Board meeting tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, 4/22. And my schedule is I'm going to be out of the office on personal business on Thursday and Friday, but should be back early next week. Other than that, all the state water meetings are all by teleconference, so I don't anticipate any travel in the next month or so. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have with regards to current operation.
Yes, Dwayne, this is Keith. I was very pleased to see that we're recharging water at Upper Amagrosa at a high rate of 6 acre-feet per day. How long do you think we'll continue this recharge?
Well, we're trying to work with our other participants to get a really a good gauge to how effective the project's going to be over the long term. So I suspect we'll continue doing that for several months in order to fully address the impacts of how that project will work.
Great, thank you. No more questions.
Any other questions? Does this conclude your report?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 11, Director's Report. Does anybody have anything to report? Okay, moving on. Item 12, Attorney Report. Is our attorney on the line?
Mr. Markman?
Guess not. Okay.
Matt says he sees his number. Perhaps he's just unmuted. Hold on.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that if he is able to unmute himself, I guess.
Mr. Markman, are you on the line?
I am.
Thank you.
Anything to report?
Yes, I do. Hi, everybody. I'm sitting in my house where I am 24/7 for a long time. But yes, we have. Our firm got assigned a charter to go move the water master rules through the process and get them through the advisory committee in front of the water masters. Has been going on a very long time, and there's been a lot of prior friction between the overlying groups, the agricultural groups, and some of the public water suppliers. So a new committee was created, which I was chairing, representing every kind of interest. And apart from working with the water master staff, we set out to try to resolve this. That started in about mid-February. And I'm happy to report we've moved this thing, I think, down to, I would call the 1 yard line. We had 3 conference calls, and we had a meeting in your offices. And every time we had a meeting or had a call, we had a new list of issues to resolve. So we went through many drafts of these water master rules. And one of the tricks was the water master rules in part have been adopted by the water master and approved by the court. There were 7 instances of part of this being already approved, and then the water master engineer tried to put it all together with all the procedural provisions, and it really was, was a mess. But now it's pretty much completely revised, and I'm happy to report there really was no friction or unnecessary friction between the public water suppliers or the agricultural interests. In fact, that's the first time we actually had pleasant meetings where those people were sitting at the same table. Rich Zimmer, Robert Cush, Warren Wellen from Waterworks 40 was there, Wendy Wang from Best Bets and Krieger. Anyway, we're all through of that, and today, and you will notice that the water master hearing on these rules was noticed already about 2 drafts ago, and the reason for that was it has to have a lot of notice, and the goal is to set April 22nd for the water master board to consider getting this done. So we've made some revisions, and they will be distributed to all the concerned parties, and so it's off. I would say it'll be in front of the advisory committee in a few weeks, and then in front of the water master. So we're pretty much done with what our task was on that, so I'm happy to report that to the board.
Well, that sounds like good news. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Markman?
Yes, Director Van Dam. Jim, I had a question. Who was the attorney present for the ag? Was that Rich Zimmer?
Rick Zimmer, Robert Cush were both there.
Okay.
They were the principal attorneys who spoke for agriculture.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Hey, Shelley, this is Rob. I just wanted to thank Jim. That's a great accomplishment to get that whole group all working together with no problems. So thank you, Jim.
Yeah, I agree. Good comment. Anything else? Okay. Number 13, this week's agenda item. Any board members have any requests for agenda items? I know Director Van Dam, you had questions about something. Did you need that to be put on the agenda?
Oh, you mean on the 70%?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I was just wondering on, that's a question for a different day.
Okay. Thank you. Any other requests for future items? Okay. Moving on to closed session. We will go into closed session in 10 minutes. We'll need to call on the second line that Holly provided for us. And then we will return back to this conference with this number to go back into open session to report what we've done. Any questions?
Item C.
Item 14C.
Oh, yes, thank you. Item 14C.
Okay, say good night because that's one I'm not allowed to participate in.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Markman.
Thank you.
Okay, did the other directors understand what we need to do?
Yes,
Yeah.
Shelley, do you need a motion to go into closed session?
Yes, please.
I move we go into closed session. This is Rob.
Second,
Second, this is Keith.
roll call vote, please.
Bree Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Harris,
Yes.
Dustin Lane,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dyer,
Yes.
Shelley Sourceful.
Yes. We'll see you all in 10 minutes. Or talk to you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
there's just audio, no video, so we're going to pause this meeting, and please, directors, call in on that second meeting line. Thank you.
Thank you.